Hello, welcome back to the Cricket Nerds. We've got Dan from Our Cricket back again to do a World Cup preview. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go through every single team in the World Cup, all 10 of them, and we're going to talk about where their strengths are, or maybe just how strong they are, how strong they look, what their weaknesses are, and then maybe a player to watch as well. Hey, sorry to interrupt, but we have to address the elephant in the room, which is Benji being framed like this. Sorry if you're an audio viewer as well. This isn't going to make much sense, but Benji at the moment looks a little bit like a Diglett, so apologies for the short cricket nerd. Hope you can look past it. Cheers. So, without further ado, we'll start off with Afghanistan, because I'd say they're probably the weirdest team. You know, they're the most like unbalanced team. And I personally will kick things off with a 3 out of 10 strength rating for Afghanistan, which is pretty low. But when you think about how strong their bowling is compared to how not strong their batting is, I think that therein lies a team that's going to be in the bottom 3 at best, really. So, yeah, I don't know what you guys think. Dan, I want to know where you think Afghanistan are looking.
I love them as a team, but I don't really think I should. There's no evidence out there to suggest that I should really like them. And I don't know whether that's just because you get swept along with like Rashid Khan and everyone's excited by Rashid. They turned up in 2019 and got hosed over here. They didn't win a game. They finished bottom of the group in 2022 down in Australia as well. They're getting better. Like, they're definitely getting better. I don't think 50 over cricket is their format. I think T20 is going to be the one where they kind of maybe upset the apple cart slightly. I like a 2. I think 2, potentially a wooden spoon game between them and the Netherlands to make sure one of those 2 teams does get a win on the board this time around. Be sod's law it rains. But yeah, I'm going to go for a 2 for Afghanistan.
Yeah, I think if they win against anyone other than the Netherlands, you could probably class it as an upset, except for maybe Bangladesh. Maybe if they win those, you might expect it. I think a lot depends on how their batting goes, because their bowling is their strongest point. I do think it depends how their top order goes. People like Ramanullah Gurbaz, Ibrahim Zadran, we know what they can do in T20 cricket. Can they do it in the one-day format? Because the difference is, in 2020 games, all it takes is one good innings from one batsman and you've got a good score. In one-day cricket, you need 3 or 4 people getting 50-plus scores to post a competitive total. So yeah, I think 2 out of 10. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna win many games. Don't know about you, Benj. Maybe you think they're gonna do really well. I'm not sure.
I do agree with all the comments that have been said. As much as I would love to disagree, because as I say, I agree with Dan. I love to get swept up in that Rashid Khan excitement. The player we haven't mentioned, Mohammad Nambi, you know, he's their senior pro. He's their, good cricketing head on him as well. And we've seen him play in all the different tournaments around the world as well. But as you say, that's always in this T20 format rather than in the ODI format. And as you say, I think they could light the world up if they have their day in T20. But I think when it comes to ODI, unless they have a blinder of a performance from like a Rashid Khan, I think they're going to struggle. So I'm going to give them a 3 as well, James.
All right. So we've said broadly what their biggest weaknesses are. They're not looking great on the strength chart. Now, really quickly, what is their one player to watch? So, Ben, you've just said Rashid Khan. I'm going to say Ramanullah Gurbaz. I think it has to be a batter that makes the difference for Afghanistan. If none of their batters fire, then I don't think their bowlers are going to have enough to work with, even on some of the, because there will be pitches that favour them, like Lucknow. They will be able to perform on those, but it's going to be a batter for me. So watch Ramanullah Gurbaz. He can put on a massive score if he's given the chance. So that's what it's going to depend on. Benji's just fallen over. Zach. What do you think is Afghanistan's player to watch?
I reckon the player to watch is Noor Ahmed. I'm quite excited to watch him bowl. Is only 18 years of age, and when you look at most of Afghanistan squad, other than Mohamed Nabi, they're quite young, which is going to be good for their experience. So I think a player like Noor Ahmed, this is the chance for him to make his stage, I guess. Dan?
I think I'll just go for Zadran. I mean, he's their leading scorer in ODI cricket this year. Looking at the numbers, it's only numbers based. Like I haven't watched a great deal of Afghanistani cricket, I'll be completely honest, but looks like a slightly maturer player than what we've seen from Afghanistan in the past with the strike rates and with the average that he's achieved this year. So yeah, I mean, maybe he can be the glue for Afghanistan in that top order and allow the likes of Gurbaz to go out there and do what Gurbaz does.
All right, there we go. If you're an Afghanistan fan, apologies, but that's where we think you're at. Australia now. I'm going to kick things off. I'm giving them an 8 out of 10. I think they bat very deep. I think they've got a lot of very, very good ODI players. I think they've got a pretty settled squad as well. I say their biggest weakness, from my point of view, is if they end up going for that really deep batting lineup and having a bit of a part-time bowler in either a Stoinis or I don't know, Mitch Marsh or Glenn Maxwell, Cam Green, that kind of person. If they have a lineup that's a lot of them, that fifth bowling person could end up getting targeted by the opposing team, which will mean that they run into a few issues and having to sort of over bowl some of their mainstay bowlers. So that's where I see Australia. But yeah, I've got them in an 8 out of 10. Dan, what do you think?
I like an 8. An 8's a great number for Australia, which hurts me to say it as an Englishman. But yeah, they look strong, don't they? I think they're well balanced. Mitch Stark's going to be dynamite. He was leading the wicket taker in 2019 by a distance. He's going to go well again. He's reverse swings the white ball, new and old. Zampa, quality leg spinner, so experienced now. They've also had the benefit of playing India in 3 ODIs in India ahead of the World Cup, which is pretty good prep. Main weakness, probably the bloke at the top of the order, Dave Warner. I mean, it's not really the Dave Warner of old. It has brilliant ICC tournaments, but yeah, is it a step too far? Does he get to that retirement party that he's got planned at the SCG? Who knows? I think it's going to be a struggle for him.
Yeah, I am in pain as well when I have to give Australia a high score. Like I'm even going to go as far as like an 8-5. It's a horrible thing to say as an England fan, but they are a very settled team. You know, everybody knows their role, and realistically, if they just dropped out David Warner for a different opener, then they'd be a much stronger team as well. As you said, I think I think they just have quality players in every single department. We've not even mentioned Pat Cummins yet at this point. You know, we've got that pace trifecta in Cummins, Stark, and Hazelwood, which has been just striking fear into the hearts of cricketers for years and years and years. Ash Nagar is there as well, who has always been a mainstay of that white ball side. I can definitely see, and I think that Australia are going to be one of the semi-final spots, which again hurts me to say. And especially with the win they had, you know, it was a sort of consolation win that they've just had against India after being beat in the first 2 ODIs. But, you know, we can see that on their day, they can be even, you know, the giant India, who are, for me, are the best ODI team in the world right now. But all of that for later. Zach, anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, I mean, I want to write Australia off. I don't want to see them get in that semi-final spot, but at the same time, they've done it 5 times before. They've won the World Cup 5 times before, so they know how to win these tournaments. And for me, looking on paper, the thing that stands out is the class of their all-rounders. People like Cameron Green, Mitchell Marsh, Glenn Maxwell, Marcus Stoinis, Sean Abbott, even, who can tonk it down the order. They've got those options there to bat deep, and I think that's really crucial for this sort of tournament. And also, Mitchell Stark, he's going for that record of most wickets in the World Cup. I mean, I think he's just solid in 50 over cricket. And so, yeah, I think they're going to have a good tournament. Player to watch, though. I know Dan and Ben, you've said about David Warner. I actually think that David Warner is a player to watch for them. I mean, he kind of feels it's almost like his second home in India. How well he's done in the IPL. He always steps up at major tournaments. I can see him having a good one.
I'm reluctantly inclined to agree. I'm not going to put him as my exact player to watch, but I think he's their leading run scorer in this current World Cup cycle. And yeah, somehow in India he really hits his straps and goes for it. And he could be one of those really, really annoying players that even if he's out of form the entire time, as soon as he goes against India or whichever team you're supporting, England, he'll end up just absolutely smacking us. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But I'm going to say Mitch Marsh is going to be the difference for them. I think the way he's batted recently could be the difference in Australia's the way they play. And if he can speed up, just get those big innings at a fast strike rate, it's going to mean that Labuschagne and Smith don't kind of go within themselves, because I think that could be a risk that if they lose a couple of early wickets, Labuschagne and Smith just end up, getting hundreds at a strike rate of 60, and it actually sort of screws Australia over. What do you think, Dan?
I think it's a valid point. I think Dave Warner, fantastic World Cup cricketer. I think he scored around about 1,000 World Cup runs for Australia. I think he averages about 50 in the tournament in that tournament as well. So I can see the logic, definitely. I like Glenn Maxwell as a player to watch. He's just kind of making his recovery back, isn't he? From did he break his leg dancing or something? It wasn't quite the golfing incident, was it, that Bairstow had? But it was something kind of.
I think it was almost playing Tig with a friend at a barbecue. I can't quite remember, but it was not a heroic way to break your leg.
What is it with cricketers and these injuries? Like, it's either a fish tank or you're just walking on a golf course. It's always something stupid, isn't it?
Definitely something rogue. But yeah, I hope Australia invest in him. I really do. He's played in so many IPLs. He's so experienced in those conditions. He's pretty much done it all now, hasn't he? Destructive with the cricket bat down the order, gives an option with the ball as well. He took a couple of wickets today. I didn't watch any of it against India. So I'll have Maxi.
Cool. I'm going to go Captain Cummins. We've not mentioned him yet, but he's a player that will turn up at the big occasions. He captained the side really well through the Ashes. And I think he might continue to do that. I was going to say to look out for Alex Carey, but I still don't think any of us have forgiven him for the incident. So he didn't make the list for that reason.
Fair enough.
Bangladesh.
Yeah, Bangladesh. Benj, how are they looking to you? What strength are you giving Bangladesh?
They're an interesting side, aren't they? I think for Bangladesh, they need to hit their straps with the bat. Like, if they can build a few partnerships, I think Bangladesh become a really, really strong side. Looking particularly at Shanto, I think he's going to be such a prospect for them for years to come. And then being supported by Lytton Das there as well. I think if those two are going to be their keys in their batting, and then they're in a pretty good place. They've got some decent spinners. They've got a very skillful bowler in Mustafiza. I really said that name wrong. The Fizz. They've got a really skillful bowler in the Fizz. But yeah, they need to really have everything come together on the day for them to be able to win. I'm going to give Bangladesh a solid 6 out of 10, because I think that they're going to perform well, especially in Indian conditions. But yeah, excited to hear from the floor as well.
I'm going to give them, similar to Afghanistan, I'm giving them a 3 or a 4. I mean, going into this World Cup, I personally thought their strength would be their batting. because of the experience they've got in Mushfiqur, in Shakib Al Hassan, Najmul Shanto, who's been doing quite well. But seeing how they batted against New Zealand, that confidence in their batting's gone for me. I think there are better bowling sides than New Zealand, and I think if Bangladesh aren't going to perform with the bat, then I don't see them doing that well. I don't see them getting more than like 2 or 3 wins. So it's quite a damning judgment on Bangladesh. Wow. But yeah, I just can't see it.
I think Bangladesh are a 5 out of 10. I'm very sort of on the fence with them. Sometimes I'm thinking, yeah, they look great. And if Shakib Al Hassan, and he is my one to watch, if he does well, I think he holds that Bangladesh side together. But their main issue is losing early wickets. If they lose a few in the power play, I think they're just done for. Like, that's the game written off. So I don't see them making the semis. But I think they are a stronger side than sort of Afghanistan and Netherlands. So yeah, 5 out of 10 for me. How about you, Dan?
4, just a 4. To be honest with you, I don't see a great deal of Bangladesh cricket, and as English fans, we don't really play them very often either, do we? As I found out the other day, it was the first time we'd been over there to play that white ball series in about 6 years, I think. So they're a team that kind of passes us by a little bit, I think, in the UK, which is a shame. They're better than the Netherlands. They're better than Afghanistan. I see it being a bit of a 50-50 with Sri Lanka, but to be honest with you, I'd say Sri Lanka, from what I've seen, probably would beat them, I think, over the course of maybe a 3 or 5 match ODI series, if that was the case. Yeah, Shakib Al Hassan, so experienced, potentially a bit of drama surrounding him at some point. There normally is, isn't there? Tamim Iqbal, I've seen today on Twitter in some press conference in tears. Not quite sure what's gone on there. So not the best kind of prep for them going forward. Home-ish conditions for them might come into play, but yeah, they just don't excite me.
No, I don't think Tamim Iqbal's even in the squad.
No, he's not.
Maybe that's why he was crying.
Yeah.
like
I'm crying because I wasn't picked for England.
I agree. It's not a very exciting squad, but I did see glimmers of hopes in the Asia Cup. So I think that's why I gave them that 6. Yeah, it will be interesting to see what they do.
Who's your main player to watch, everybody? Because I said Shakib Al Hassan. Are we all on the same page there? Because like he's their MVP Shanto. every time, isn't he?
Zach says Shanto.
Yeah, he's key at the top of the order.
Yeah, for me, Lytton Das as well. You know, he can be very consistent in the runs, but it's if they lose his wicket early, that's when they're going to have problems. Who's your player to watch, Dan?
It's a boring pick, but Sakib.
Like,
he's fair. 1,200 World Cup runs, team of the tournament last year, best ODI in the form. The best all-rounder in the format. It's hard to look past him.
Yeah. Right, we've all been dying for it, but let's move on to England. So, Zach, give us a rating, England out of 10.
I'm going to say 8.5 out of 10. That's where I'm going. I think defending champions, they haven't played that much 50 over cricket since the last World Cup. They've kind of got a few changes going on, but I think they've just look like a solid squad. It's the England way to make sure every position's kind of covered and everyone's got a role. I think the decision to bring in Harry Brook for Jason Roy is a great one, because Harry Brook can bat at the top and in the middle. So I think that's a great shout. And he's had a great summer, so it makes sense. For me, the main weakness is Joe Root. Is he going to be in form? If he hits form and he does well, could be a completely different tournament, because he's so solid, but he's just not in form at the moment. So for me, in a weird way, Joe Root's the main weakness at this point in time.
Did we ever think we'd be saying that about Joe Root?
Well, I don't think I would. Yeah.
Dan, go on. What do you think about the England squad? Yeah.
I've got to echo those points with regards to Joe Root's form. It's a worry, isn't it? He definitely has all the ability and all the talent in the world to turn that around in this World Cup. Let's not kind of get too upset now. But yeah, at the moment he can't really buy a run. But maybe that's because we're expecting him to live up to those high standards that he set himself. I see them being an 8. I see them being similar-ish to Australia. Pretty experienced all the way through, aren't they, from top to bottom? It's only really Gus Atkinson that you look at in that squad that you kind of go, it's a little bit inexperienced. Even Harry Brook, which sounds ridiculous, you would say is quite an experienced cricketer now. Yeah, pretty well catered for in all the departments. They've got spin bowling all-rounders. They've got seam bowling all-rounders that they can swap and change depending on where they are playing and what the conditions might be for that particular ground. And yeah, Ben Stokes is back in the team as well. So when we come down to a game that we need to win, we're just going to roll Stokes out and just let Stokes do what Stokes does, and we'll be fine.
Yeah, I wonder if I'm being too generous with all this, but I genuinely see England as a 9 going into this World Cup, and I know it's going to jinx it, and I know now we're not going to make it out of the groups, but like I think that honestly, I could think that this is one of the strongest England sides that I've seen going into a World Cup. I think it's stronger than the 2019 team that we had, and because as you've all said, we've got something for every position. We've got some absolute class batters who have got all the power in the world and can clear the ropes. We've got very skillful players of spin. We've then got some ridiculously experienced and accurate spinners. We've got accurate bowlers. We've got skillful bowlers, and we've got some very fast bowlers. Like, how often do you say that about England, that we've got 2 genuine fast bowlers in Gus Atkinson and Mark Wood, provided we wrap Woody in bubble wrap so that we don't break him halfway through the tournament. I think pending injuries, like England, I think are another semi-final team. Of course, Ben Stokes' knee is probably going to explode, and Mark Wood's going to not be able to make it through 3 games back to back. Clearly that's going to happen, but if everyone is fit, I think that this is, I think they're a 9. I think they're probably one of the tournament favourites going into it, not to mention my boy Wokesy. So there you go.
I'm going with an 8 out of 10. Not quite as optimistic as Benji, and it's particularly about the bowling that my main concerns come from. I'm still rating them 8 out of 10. I still think they're super strong, but I think my main concern is their bowling in India might be a concern. You know, generally you want to see spinners because, you know, a lot of the grounds are flatter or, you know, potentially more indicative to spin. You want to see the spinners bowling a bit faster. And our main spinner is Adil Rashid, who's been a bit of an injury worry, and he bowls quite slowly. We've seen him get quite a bit of tap in India before. And Sam Curran also hasn't done that well in India. He was pretty poor with the ball in the IPL. And, you know, I think we'd need him to have a similar tournament to as he did in Australia to actually be in with a chance of winning. So, yeah, they're an 8 out of 10 for me. The one to watch is Liam Livingstone, because I think he actually balances the side quite a lot. I think if Adil Rashid does end up having a pretty average tournament, you're going to need Liam Livingstone to really kick on and show him, you know, how to bowl, which seems like a really flipped way to do it. But I think Livingstone means that we can still bat really deep and also have some good bowling options. Who's your one to watch, Dan?
Well, Livingstone, he was really proud of that 98, wasn't he, in the New Zealand series? Kind of really made a point, was quite vocal about the fact that actually he's more than just a one-trick pony and has the ability to go out there and play in inverted commas, proper cricket innings, rather than just go out there and wallop it that everybody expects him to. So he's a good shout. I am going to go for Dawid Malan. Just think the guy is in red-hot form, averaging like 75 in the format this year. He's scored 100 in every format for England. I don't think he gets the respect that he deserves. And I just see him at the top of the order, batting the whole way through for 50 overs, churning the runs out. I put a video out this evening. I put him in my team at the tournament before the World Cup even starts. I think he's going to have an absolute storm in time.
Yeah, I was also thinking Dawid Malan from that point of view. Like, he's very underrated, and what's he got to do to make everyone just stop and think, no, this guy's actually really good? And I think I said it in a previous podcast, the ODI format is made for him because he can take his time at the start and then accelerate as he does through the middle and toward the end if he lasts that long. But someone a bit different is another David Willey. I think that he could have a pretty good tournament. I mean, he wasn't in the last World Cup, so I think he's got a bit of a point to prove, and he generally does quite well in the IPL. I remember the last 2020 World Cup in India when it was the one where Carlos Brathwaite hit Stokes for the sixes at the end. David Willey actually bowled quite well at the death in that tournament, and I have a feeling that if he can replicate that in this tournament, that will go a long way to helping England, because their death bowling, other than Sam Curran, there isn't really that obvious choice. So yeah, David Willey, he's another one to watch for me.
See,
Right.
I'm upset because you both took my fire when talking about David Milan, because again, I think even though he's underrated over the majority of cricket, I think he's very highly rated between us on this podcast, because he's just so class. He just plays proper cricket, doesn't he? Like, he plays proper, good old proper cricket, and he's not considered one of these flashy players because he doesn't smash it over the ropes, even though he can. You know, when he gets the chance, he can put the bad ball miles over the ropes if he needs to. But yeah, I think David Milan is my player to watch for England too.
There we go. Right, on to the probably, I think we're all going to agree, the favourites going into this tournament. It's a home World Cup for them. It's India. And I'll kick things off and say they're a 9 out of 10 for me. They're almost all there. My main issue with them, and this is my issue with them for a little while now, is while they've got a really, really quality top six, and to be honest, they've probably got about 12 players in India that could play in that top six and be incredible. The main issue I have with them is that they don't bat very deep in their lineups. You know, they tend to have like Jadeja at 7, and then it's like Kuldeep Yadav, who can't really hold a bat. And then you're into like Shami or Siraj or Bumrah, and then things are really going off. So yeah, that's my main issue for them, is that they don't bat deep enough, and it could mean that, you know, some of those really quality top order batters go into their shell a little bit if they lose early wickets and they end up choking another ICC event. So yeah, that's my opinion of India. Zach, what do you think?
I think India are going to do what Brazil did in the World Cup. I think they're going to get to the semi-final. They're going to come up against an England or an Australia, and the pressure of that, the nation, the 1.7 billion people, is just going to get to them, and they're going to collapse in the batting, and it's not going to be pretty for India. I just have a feeling that that's what's going to happen. I'm happy to be proven wrong, because I'd give them like a 9.5 out of 10. I mean, on paper, they've got the strongest team, and everyone is hitting this tournament in form. There's no one in that squad where I'm like, you're costing your team. Everyone looks really good.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you gave that caveat there, so I can give them a 9.5, because I was about to call you out for spouting a load of old rubbish, saying that they're going to choke it in the semi-finals, because aside from England, they are just the strongest giant in the world for ODI cricket right now. Definitely give them a 9.5 out of 10. I think, James, you love an all-rounder, so that's why you're critical about it, but I don't think they need it. When your top six is Rohit Sharma, Shubman Gill, then Kohli as your 3, and then you've got Shreyas Iyer, Kishan, Hardik Pandya, Jadeja. You've got so many players who can go out and score runs there. There's just no doubt in my mind that we're going to see India in the finals this year, if not champions. They're just one of the strongest teams I think I've ever seen. You know, they have stuff for all bases. They've got quality spinners in Jadeja, Axar Patel, and Kuldeep Yadav. Their seam attack in Bumrah, Shami, and Siraj is, again, probably the only seam attack that's stronger than Australia's that they have there. They are a little bit light in that sort of all-rounder. They haven't got, the one thing they're missing is sort of the number 8 who can still hold a bat. But that may be why they have Sharl Thakur in there. If they're struggling a bit, he can come in, and we've seen Thakur go and smash it around. It's just such a strong squad when you think Surya Kumar Yadav is in there as a reserve. Like, I don't put Sky in my starting 11 for India. And I think that just shows you what a good place they're in. yeah, I think hands down favourites in this tournament. Dan, what do you reckon?
Yeah, 9.5. And I think you could have a really good argument just to give them the straight 10 out of 10. I think there'd be a really, really strong call to look at every other player that's going to this World Cup and think that I don't necessarily think anybody else goes out to that World Cup and walks into this India team. And I think that includes the likes of Joss Butler and Ben Stokes and Mitch Stark, except all of these absolute world-class individuals that we've had or we've spoken about so far. I think you'd honestly have a serious conversation and go, you know what, I'll just stick with what the BCCI have got at the moment.
Yeah.
They are stacked from 1 through 15 in this squad. They are fit. Like Pandya is fit. He's bowling rockets again. Everybody's in form, as you said. Shubman Gill scored 1,000 runs this year. Kuldeep Yadav's remembered how to bowl again. Bumrah's fit and bowling rockets. Like, what's not to love about this India team? I do agree with you, Zach. I think there is a chance that potentially they end up kind of beating themselves when it comes to that kind of knockout game. But there's a big part of me, if it's England, I'll be happy. But there's a big part of me that I think I'd be really disappointed. I'd be a bit upset if I saw it, because this team should go and win this World Cup. Number 1 in the world, home advantage. Go and win the World Cup, lads.
Yeah. I mean, the issue with them in the 2020 World Cup just gone was everyone was criticizing them for being too conservative. I mean, they've just set Australia 400 to win in one of the ODIs. I think that conservative tagline is something they're trying to leave behind. They're trying to up the impetus and score runs as quickly as they can. And my player to watch is someone you mentioned, Hardik Pandya. His skills with both bat and ball, being able to take crucial wickets in the middle order, being able to field like an absolute demon. And then on top of that, his batting, he can score you a century in next to no deliveries. So yeah, he's my player to watch for them.
My player is another all-rounder, is Ravi Jadeja, because as a bowler, he's stellar. But in white ball cricket, somehow he has it the other way around, where like everybody else struggles at white ball batting, really finds white ball batting easy and then struggles at red ball. He's the other way around. He's quality at red ball batting, and yet as soon as the ball is white, he really struggles. So if he can figure out his batting, India, I think, are very, very, very well set. But if he doesn't, I just think they are a batter light there, because that number 7 spot, even then, is a bit shaky. What about you, Dan?
Kuldeep Yadav turns the ball both ways. He had such a good year a couple of years ago, kind of went off the radar a bit off the boil. 33 wickets this year, average of like 16 with the ball as well. Like a leg spinner in form is going to be key. And if he turns up and bowls as well as what he has done over the last 12 months, then do you know what? It's bloody hard to pick one player out of this 15, isn't it?
It's so hard, isn't it? I can't believe none of you have said Shubman Gill. Like Shubman Gill is definitely my player to watch this year.
That's how hard it is.
Well, yeah, for sure. But yeah, surely it's Shubman Gill for me. As you say, Dan, you were a little bit light on the number of runs he scored this year. He scored 1,200 runs this year, which is just ridiculous. He's striking at 105. He's averaging 72 with the bat this year. Like, is there a player in as much form as Shubman Gill right now? I don't think there is in world cricket right now. Also, this might be a bit of a cheap shot at you, James, but you were just calling out Ravi Jadeja there, and my CSK juices were flowing, and then I've just spotted that there aren't any Punjab players in this squad, and I just wanted to point that out while we're on the podcast.
That's a cheap shot. All right, less of that. Right, let's move on.
Can I just go on though and just add that Sean Williams, Temba Bavuma, Ben Stokes, and Dawid Malan are all averaging more than Shubman Gill this year as well.
Yeah, so take that, Shubbers. Let's move on to we've gone from heroes in India to sort of zeros in the Netherlands. I've put these guys as a 3 out of 10. I think they're the joint weakest squad. I think as a general setup, the Netherlands isn't that bad. But I think as soon as you stick that team in India, their weakness is spin, and not just bowling it, but playing it as well. I think just anything that spins, the Netherlands are going to really struggle. They've got Rolf van der Merwe, but he's all right. But I don't think he's like world class enough to really cause those issues in the middle overs. So, yeah, Netherlands for me are not looking good. How about you, Dan?
Honestly, I see them going for the wooden spoon. I think they'll go through this tournament without winning a game of cricket, which is really hard to say. I think you look back at that qualifier down in Zimbabwe and probably surprised a few, actually, that first of all, they got past the West Indies, Ireland, Scotland to get through to this World Cup in the first place. It's not to say they haven't got some exciting players. I mean, Logan Van Beek, Baz de Leader, both very good cricketers. Colin Ackerman, so experienced, scores a lot of run. Vikramjit Singh as well. He led their run scorers down in Zimbabwe. And Rolly van der Merwe for those absolute vibes. But yeah, if they can bowl a team out cheaply, that's how I think they're going to win one of these games. But I don't see how they go about doing that.
No,
Yeah.
I mean the two teams that are the next weakest in Afghanistan and Bangladesh are they're going to be playing against the Netherlands in their favoured conditions. So even that puts Netherlands at a disadvantage to try and win the game. For me, with the Netherlands, it's just little wins, not necessarily getting the main wins, but they have 9 games, which is a lot of experience for some of these players. And I think for me that it's all about how do their young players perform. Can someone like Sharaz Ahmed, can he get in the wickets? Baz de Leader, he's probably their best, most exciting player. How is he going to score a load of runs and get a load of wickets? What are the little things that they could be looking for so they can leave this tournament thinking we've done okay here and we've got something to work on moving forward? Because I think for them, getting to the World Cup in itself is a big deal and is already a big win for them.
Yeah, I'm glad you've made that point, Zach, actually, because I think just in the sheer fact that they've qualified, I think they need to be proud of that. I think, as Dan, you mentioned, beating Ireland, beating Scotland, they've done a lot of hard work to get to this spot now. You know, beating Zimbabwe as well, who aren't, slouches when it comes to the Associate Nations. Yeah, they've got a lot. They're just a team where you nearly score 500 runs against them and set the ODI record. There's obviously going to be problems there, isn't it? I can't see any other way of them winning, as from what you've just said, Dan, in terms of bowling them out cheaply and then knocking them off. And yeah, for us proper county championship cricket badgers out there, Rolf van der Merwe, we've seen him time after time perform through the years, and we love to see van der Merwe do well. But yeah, I think really that's their only hope. Do we have players to watch for them?
I'd say what's his name, Baz de Leader. I think if he could have a similar tournament to the T20 tournament Josh Little had, and just get himself like an IPL contract. I think that he's the kind of player that I could see just being really exciting. I think Zach's absolutely hit the nail on the head. He is the most exciting player in the Netherlands at the moment with bat and ball. And I think he's class. So Baz de Leader for me.
And me.
There we go. Go on, Ben.
All agree.
I'm gonna go old Rolly boy, Rolf van der Merwe. He's the experienced head. He's the senior pro on that side. We've seen him in the county championship, the 100, the Blast,
For South Africa.
And for South Africa, yeah, all of the above. Yeah, I hope he has a good tournament, because let's be honest, it's probably going to be a bit of a swan song for him, isn't it?
How about you, Dan?
Baz de Leader is a sensible pick. Van der Merwe for the complete vibes.
Right. Let's move on to probably far from vibes. I'd say they're probably the most boring team in the World Cup, because they'll probably just win a few games, but they just turn up, but there's nothing really exciting about them. It's New Zealand. I'm putting them as a 7 out of 10. I think I took 1 mark off them for being boring. I'm not inspired by New Zealand at all. Kane Williamson coming back from injury could be interesting for them. But they've got a lot of anchors, which I think is a good thing. And Glenn Phillips could be interesting, but they're a bit boring. What do you think, Zach?
I think they tick all the boxes in that they've got some class batsmen who can score big runs. You think of Devon Conway, think how fast Glenn Phillips can score. Kane Williamson, he's proven himself time and time again as being really consistent. And then Daryl Mitchell, who is in insane form, and he'll probably score 300 runs against England because he likes to play against England. And when you look at their bowling, you got someone like Trent Bolt. If he gets wickets in the first 10 overs, which he usually does, that will help. And then you've got players like Lockie Ferguson and Nish Sodhi who look pretty good in the middle overs. So for me, they tick a lot of boxes. They're just missing that extra bit of something which teams like India, England, Australia have. And I think that's why I'm giving them like a 5, 6 out of 10. Dan, thoughts?
I was thinking go real hot take and give them a 4.
Okay.
But the more I think about it, I think 5 is kind of the place where I see them. They just, as you said, they don't excite me in the slightest. Williamson scores too slowly. Conway, unless he scores 100, literally doesn't score a run. They haven't got a world-class spinner. Their 2 seamers are aging. One of them, I think, has got like a thumb that's in 3 pieces after that game at Lord's as well. There just isn't a great deal to get me really hyped about this team. But I also know the fact that it's New Zealand. I also know the fact that they're just going to turn up and make their way through to a semi-final. And everyone's going to go, I don't really understand how you did that. But I don't want them to. It's about time that they just don't deserve to get through that far. I can see them losing to Sri Lanka. I can see Bangladesh turning them over, England turning them over, Pakistan turning them over, India, Australia. Like, I can really see this, looking at this team, being a really tough World Cup for them.
They have the personality of a cardboard box. Like that's what I'd say about them.
It's just a personal attack.
I think like, sorry, I might be being harsh, but I think they just have, while they have very talented players on paper, they have the character. They have no character in that side. Like, apart from Trent Bolt with the flamingo defensive, for that to be the best thing of entertainment to come out of New Zealand, says a lot. Having said that, Trent Bolt will always get 2 or 3 wickets in the power play. That's just how he bowls. Like, he will always pick up some wickets early, which always puts teams on the back foot. Lockie Ferguson can go in there and bowl rockets. And then Mitch Santner, I think he's a player that doesn't get talked about enough. I think if Mitch Santner was an Australian rather than a Kiwi, he'd be on the front page of everything. He'd be one of the top players in the world. But because he's from New Zealand, I think he gets slept on a bit. I'm going to give them a 6. I don't see them. They're not one of my semi-final teams. But as Dan says, they're probably going to get to the semi-finals, and we'd just be like, how did that happen? What's gone on here then, everyone?
Yeah.
Right, ones to watch. I'm going for Glenn Phillips. I think he could be a cheeky point of difference with bat, ball, and in the field. Zach?
Devon Conway, a lot rests on his shoulders.
Benj?
Mitch Santner, quality.
Dan?
I honestly have no idea, lads. Genuinely. I'm so underwhelmed by them.
Just don't watch them.
I'll say Ferguson. I'll say Ferguson for the pace. He went well in 2019, so he can definitely do it again.
I guess this World Cup, it's people who are going to win if they're up for the fight. Like, you think about Australia, they're always up for the fight. India want to win this World Cup. There's so much hope on them. New Zealand, they're the nice guys, and I think in this World Cup, nice guys will finish last. So just the way it's going to go. They might beat the Netherlands.
That's poetic, Zach. That was poetic.
Yeah.
Right,
Thank
then,
you.
boys. Let's move on to Pakistan then.
Pakistan.
Who are gonna be in this World Cup fighting tooth and nail. They had a bit of a disappointing time in the Asia Cup recently. They got absolutely bodied by India on 2 occasions, which just wasn't nice to see. And to see a team get beaten that badly, and then also all of them just to get injured in that game. Like, Shaheen Sharafridi limping off the field, not being able to finish. Naseem Shah has been withdrawn from the squad through to injury as well, which I think is a huge, huge issue for Pakistan. Having said that, they have just got such top class quality players in there as well. The likes of Fakhar Zaman and Imam ul Haq at the top of the order, setting that base. Babar Azam's going to score 1 billion runs in the World Cup, I'm sure of it. And he just does it at that. He almost looks chanceless sometimes, the way that he bats. I think these guys have a real chance of making it through to the semis. And for me, I'm giving them an 8 out of 10.
Wow.
Zach?
I'm more leaning toward a 7. I think, as you've said, Benj, they have some class players. There's actually been quite a bit of hate going around about Babar Azam and the fact that he doesn't deserve to be the number 1 in the world because he never scores runs against the top teams. So it'll be interesting to see how he answers that as the Pakistan captain, see how he does against teams like India, Australia, and England. And that for me is the thing for their tournament. If they're going to get through to the semi-final, they need to win those big games. And when I look at their teams compared with the big teams, I don't see it happening. I'm interested that they brought Hassan Ali into the squad. He's always a bit of a character. See a few of his celebrations, but yeah, I think for me it all depends on how well Babar Azam bats and also how well Shadab Khan bowls, if they're going to stand a chance.
I'm similar in my thinking. I've got them as a 7 out of 10, so same as New Zealand. I think there's plenty of strength there. However, the main weakness I see is that a strike bowler in the spin department. I think they've got Shaheen Sharafridi who can take those early wickets, but Shadab Khan as your main spin bowler, while I think he has so much potential, and I really like him in T20s, ODIs, I don't think he's quite accurate enough to be a genuine wicket-taking threat in those middle overs. And that, for me, is a huge issue that Pakistan need to address if they're going to get anywhere in this tournament. Is that Dan? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the spin bowling point's a really valid one. And I think when you look at that squad and you look at Shadab as the leader, it's a worry. And it's a shame, really, isn't it, with Pakistani cricket? When you think about the legends that they have produced over the years in the spin bowling school, then to turn up to a major tournament with Shadab Khan is a little bit disappointing. But then you look at some of the pitches that they prepare for their international cricket in Pakistan. I mean, who the hell would want to be a spinner over there? Can't believe Hassan Ali's only 29 years old.
Yeah.
3 blokes in the top 10 of the ICC ODI rankings. I'm giving them a 7. I'm marking them down 1 just because it's Pakistan and we know kind of how, what's the nice way to describe this? We all know their ability on how they can cock this up themselves, I think is probably the polite way of saying it. And that I think marks them down 1. Otherwise, I think they're in there for a semi-final for me, guaranteed.
Yeah. I just don't know how Osama Mir is in that squad. I don't understand how he's in that squad, and I don't understand how he was a £150,000 contract in the 100 this year. That's another thing that's been winding me up all summer. Because he's a decent leg spinner, but he's not the best. And as we've said, Shadab Khan is probably their flagship spinner with, a little bit of the part-timers in Salman Nawaz and Iftikhar Ahmed.
So Ben, we've got your one to not watch.
Yeah, here's my one to not watch. My one to watch, for me, it's actually, even though he chucks it, is Mohammed Wasim Jr. I think that he's a real prospect for them. And in the absence of Naseem Shah, he needs to perform.
Zach, who's your one to watch?
I'm going to go with... it's a toss-up between Mohammed Rizwan and Shaheen Sharafridi. I mean, if you think about the last World Cup, how well in the 2020 World Cup, how well Rizwan did. For me, it depends on if he's batting well, then that really helps that Pakistan squad. But Shaheen Sharafridi, he's the main player, isn't he? He's the star man.
Whichever one you pick, I'll take the other one because those are my 2 as well. I echo the exact same points. I think the ability that Shaheen Sharafridi has to take wickets in those first few overs as well, similar to Trent Bolt, it can gut a team straight away. And when you think about some of the other teams, especially like Bangladesh as an example, where that fragile top order can lead to them losing games straight away. That means that Shaheen Shah Afridi can win them a game almost single-handedly, and it makes a massive difference. Who's your one to watch, Dan?
Let's go Baba then. I'll take Baba at the top. I mean, let's prove the world as to why you're 100 points clear of Shubman Gill in the ICC rankings. No one knows how they're calculated. No one really, but yeah, we'll figure it out and go and score the runs against the big teams. Lead from the top, captain your side through to a World Cup. Imagine the headlines: Pakistan win the World Cup in India. That would be an absolutely outrageous story.
Right, South Africa and Sri Lanka. Let's get through them. South Africa, I'm putting them as a dark horse for this competition because I just reckon that they have a really decent squad, but they have one issue, which is if their top six doesn't fire, then they're not going to score many runs. So I think if their top six fires on a consistent basis, they're ones that could go all the way to the semis, perhaps even the final. I don't think they'll win their first World Cup though. But yeah, they're the ones to watch for me. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I'm similar. I think South Africa are always a one to watch ahead of a World Cup because as far as actual quality of team goes, they've got really good players. They just in my notes, I've got strength 7 out of 10. So the same as Pakistan, New Zealand. Weakness, chokers. And they really are. They are the epitome of, just a team that can choke in a tournament. And that's where they'll come down. People like Rassie van der Dussen and Temba Bavuma and Aidan Markram, if they come to the party, there are runs upon runs to be had there. But if they don't, then they could see a few issues. Dan?
Yeah, 7 again for me. And I think a really similar story to Pakistan. They would be the two teams that would fight out for that 4th semi-final place. They do go into this World Cup again without that kind of real world-class frontline spinner. Maharaj, better than Handy, but again, that probably isn't going to be in your top 10 choices. Tabrei Shamsi, similar to Adil Rashid, the conversation that we had earlier, probably bowls a little bit slowly. Injury to Nortje is huge, but they have got pace. They've got so much pace and experience in India. The batters, like Bavuma's averaging 70 this year in ODI cricket. We know what Quinton de Kock can do. Heinrich Klaassen is an animal, even though I said he was a bit of a boring pick in the 100. Markram, maybe it's his year. Maybe it's the time that he stands up. Thriller Miller, Rassie is I think he's top 3, I think, in the rankings as well. Like, it's between those two to fight out for that last place. And I reckon if Nortje was there, they'd probably just slide above Pakistan, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Go on.
I was just going to say the issues for South Africa is they've picked more bowlers than any other team in the tournament. And they've only got 2 all-rounders who are bowling all-rounders. So the issues is their batting depth. I mean, the top 6, 7 is great, but that is their issue. Players to watch. Who do you have as their player to watch, Benj?
For me, it's Rabada. I think he's their frontline attack now with Nortje not being there. I think he's the one that really needs to go in there and take those wickets. And yeah, if he performs and gets early wickets, then it's going to do them well. James?
Yeah, my one to watch is going to be Marco Jansen. I love an all-rounder. I think he really balances the side. I think the way he performed the other day as well. I say the other day, I can't remember when it was, but it was. I think it was was it India were touring South Africa, and he was just absolutely unbelievable. He played a really good 50 and he took a 5 for, and just that ability to completely balance that side is what South Africa are really going to need. Zach?
Heinrich Klaassen. I mean, I think like Dan says, he's an animal. He scored 170 recently. And yeah, he's really good against spin as well. Like that ability against spin is going to serve him really well in this World Cup in India. And Dan? One from you?
Yeah, Markram for me. I think it's about time that he really steps up and shows the world just how good he actually is. Also, is a handy bowler. Might allow South Africa to pick those seamers that they want to, just to kind of give that spinning option a bit further up the order. So yeah, Markram for me.
Right. Let's move on to our last team, Sri Lanka. I think this is going to be quite a bit of variance between us. I've gone for a 7 out of 10. I've said they've got a strong side, capable of many upsets. However, I just think the lack of Hasaranga means that they could struggle for those middle order breakthroughs, similar to Pakistan. You know, there's spin bowler breakthroughs. I think they've got a lot of very, very good bowlers, but losing Hasaranga is a big loss for them. So yeah, that's why I've gone for 7 out of 10. What do you think, Dan?
5, just because I don't understand Sri Lanka ODI cricket in the slightest. I mean, look at the last 12 months. They've gone on, what, a 13-game winning streak, which included that clean sweep of the qualifiers down in Zimbabwe. Got to the final of the Asia Cup. They beat Pakistan in that must-win game, thriller, and then got rolled for 50 in the final by India. I don't honestly know where to put this lot. They confuse the crap out of me. I think Hasaranga missing is huge. And yeah, I mean, honestly, they could turn up in the final for all I know. I have honestly no idea.
Yeah, they are a confusing team. And I mean, the big thing is they don't really have the batters who can score them loads of runs. There's no one in that batting line who I'm looking at thinking they're going to score a match-winning 150 or they're going to be consistent in the tournament. I mean, their captain in Shanaka, he's really struggling for runs. And when your captain's not firing with runs, then that has a massive knock-on effect on the rest of the team. So I just don't see them scoring big enough totals to challenge. I mean, the games they played in that winning streak, they weren't the top teams. And so in those sorts of games, you can rely on your bowling to do well. And they have a good bowling lineup, even though they're missing Hasaranga. But their batting is just too weak for me.
Yeah, but then they'll do weird things like chase down a total from Pakistan and look fantastic, and Asalanka will come in there and score a ton of runs, and Kusal Mendis will as well. Like they're a confusing team. You are right with that, Dan. I'm giving them a 6. They could come through and do really well. We've all said the same thing, haven't we? That they're definitely missing Hasaranga in there. I think he would bump them up a whole point, in my view. But yeah, they need somebody to perform consistently, and I don't think they have that. And yeah, that's why I'm giving them a 6. In terms of a player to watch, I don't know if he'll play, but I really want to go with Dunith Walagi. After his fantastic performance against India in the ODIs recently. I'd love to see him, burst onto the scene in this World Cup. Maybe he'd be the new style of Hasaranga, who knows? But yeah, he's my one to watch for Sri Lanka.
Stole mine. I was also going to say Wellalagi. He just looks good, doesn't he? And he's got a great name. It's great saying Wellalagi.
I'm
Dan,
going
for
Pathum Nissanka.
Okay.
He's the top scorer in the last year for Sri Lanka. He's absolutely smashed it in ODIs. He's one of the only ones that's actually got a really good average. I think he's averaging to close to like 50, at least in the last year he is. So he's somebody that I think could really do well for Sri Lanka and could just hold that team together, basically. What do you think, Dan?
I'll go for the seamer. I'll go for Pathirana. Another youngster, both 20 as well as the spinner that you mentioned earlier. I think Pathirana was the highest wicket taker in the Asia Cup. I think Welagi maybe had 10 wickets, I think. So yeah, pace is going to be important in this World Cup, isn't it? Those pitches might be a bit flat. They might not be the most spicy to have a bowl on. So if you got genuine pace, then that might be the thing that gets you through a top order. So let's have that guy.
Right. So there it is. The full comprehensive preview to the World Cup. Let us know in the comments who you think's going to win and what you think is the ratings for all the different teams, because we'd be really interested to know and why. Thank you so much, Dan, for coming on. It's always lovely to have you on the podcast. If you haven't checked out Our Cricket, it is absolutely stellar content. We're all really enjoying watching it, and it looks like you're enjoying making it. So that it's great. Do check it out. It's very fun, and yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us out, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.